What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, and if you're here, you probably just saw Eternals and want to know what those post-credit scenes are about. Now, I've been hearing that a lot of people are confused about these two post-credit scenes even after watching some breakdowns, so my goal is going to be to explain it in the most simplistic way possible. And I've actually noticed that a few people have gotten one of the post-credit scenes wrong. This is not their fault. The director Chloe Zhao came out after and revealed a certain key part to one of the post-credit scenes, adding clarity and confirming one thing. And of course, I'll break that down. And needless to say, this is a post-credit scene explanation video, so if you're trying to avoid spoilers, you should click away. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to stay up to date on the MCU, and if you'd like a chance to win a Spider-Man action figure, subscribe to my channel and the channel Cosmic Culture and leave some comments on some videos. Also, right now, let me know what you thought about the Eternals. Did you like it or did you not like it? Now, the first mid-credit scene is the one that introduces the one and only Harry Styles. And not to brag, but I did report on this over a year ago, so it's pretty cool to see it happen. But here is what's happening in the mid-credit scene. Now, at the very end of the movie, before the mid-credit scene, Eros arrives and he takes Cersei, Kingo, and Phastos. He would have taken the other Eternals, but they are on a ship in the middle of space somewhere, not on Earth. Eros says, "You have chosen to sacrifice a celestial for the people of this Earth." He then says, "I will spare them, but your memories will show if they are worthy to live, and I will return for judgment." He then takes Cersei, Kingo, and Phastos with him, and he's going to examine their memories to determine the fate of the people on Earth. This is where we get into the mid-credit scene. We go to the Eternals' ship, the Domo, and we see Makkari, Thena, and Druig. And Thena and Makkari pick up on a presence that is coming onto the ship. They brace themselves for an enemy, but all of a sudden, a character teleports onto the ship. This is Pip the Troll. Pip the Troll comes from the planet Laxadasia. Now, originally, he didn't look like a troll until one night he partied with some trolls and he drank a liquor and he turned into one. He was then exiled from his planet, and eventually he teamed up with Adam Warlock. Now, it's recently been announced that Adam Warlock will make his MCU debut in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, being played by Will Poulter. However, Pip is not with Adam Warlock in the post-credits scene. Thena is about to ask who Pip is, but Pip interrupts because he's about to announce who is coming. Pip says, "Behold, the royal prince of Titan, brother of Thanos, the knave of hearts." He then says the defeater of Black Robert, but quickly corrects it to Black Roger. The great adventurer, Starfox. Now, when Starfox comes in, he says, "Hello, my fellow Eternals." Thanos asks who he is, and he says, "I am Eros." Druig then asks what he wants, and then Eros pulls out the Prime Orb, the same type of orb that Ajak and then Cersei had, which was used to communicate with Arishem. Eros then looks at the orb and says, "Your friends are in trouble, and we know where to find them." Okay, so let's break this down. Eros, aka Starfox, is an Eternal. This is why he says, "Hello, my fellow Eternals." He is an Eternal in the comics, and his brother is indeed Thanos. Now, some people may be asking how that's possible. Thanos doesn't look anything like an Eternal. Well, in the comics, Thanos is indeed an Eternal. He was born of two Eternal parents, Alars and Suisan. So Thanos was born an Eternal, but he inherited the deviant gene, which is why he looks all purple and all messed up. Now, Eros' parents are also Thanos' parents. Eros is Thanos' younger brother. In the comics, the father, Alars, established an eternal settlement on Titan. You may remember Titan from Avengers Infinity War. Thanos said that it was his home. We won't dive too deep into this in this video, I'll save it for another one. Let's keep this video simple. When Eros says his friends are in trouble, it's obviously because Arishem has taken them. Now, Eros does have a Prime Orb. Since Alars, his father, was the one to establish a settlement on Titan, we could assume that his father had the Prime Orb and communicated with a Celestial. However, it does seem like Eros and perhaps a few other Eternals found out what the Celestials were doing, and much like the Eternals that we just watched, they decided to not go with what the Celestials wanted. It looks like Eros managed to flee and not get captured by a Celestial and is now trying to recruit other Eternals to go and save some of his fellow Eternals as well. Now the question is, where did Arishem take the other Eternals? They actually mentioned this in the movie. Arishem is explaining to Cersei how the Eternals were created, and he says that their home, where they were created, is called the World Forge. So this is going to be where they're going to be heading down the line in the MCU. Now, one thing to take note of is that Pip the Troll called Eros the Knave of Heart, And this is because his power is literally the ability to get women to fall in love with him. Eros has dated a lot of people in the Marvel Universe, including She-Hulk, and since She-Hulk is coming up, I'm wondering if there will be any type of connection there, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel toned him down a lot in the MCU and perhaps gave him different powers, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Now, Eros and Thanos never really got along in the comics, although we don't see much interaction between them. However, Eros does at one point become an Avenger and fight alongside them. Now for the post-credit scene. In the film, we're introduced to Dane Whitman, and he talks about his family and how the history of his family is very complicated. That is because he is actually the character, or will go on to be the character, the Black Knight. Now, the first Black Knight started with one of Dane Whitman's ancestors, Sir Percy of Scandia, the first Black Knight. He was eventually murdered and it was passed down to another Percy descendant until eventually it got down to Dane Whitman's uncle, Nathan Garrett. Now, when he became the Black Knight, he decided that he was going to be a villain. Now, he would go on to be mortally wounded in a fight against Iron Man. He fled and he called his nephew, Dane Whitman, to his side. He told him everything and asked him to atone for the mistakes that he made and return the honor of their family legacy as the Black Knight, being a hero. Now, this is probably what Dane Whitman was referring to when he was telling Cersei that his family history is complicated. And this takes us to the post-credit scene. Dane is in an office, presumably his, and he's debating on whether or not to open a crate and take a sword that is inside of it. His family crest is on top of the chest, and you can tell that Dane is super nervous. He opens it really quickly and steps back because he starts to hear a lot of voices. You can't really make them out, but you can tell that something is up with the sword. On the top of the chest when he opens it is markings that say, "Death is my reward." Dane says, "I'm sorry, but I have to try," saying sorry most likely to his ancestors that came before him because, as we know, the MCU doesn't keep origin stories as they are in the comics. More on this in a second. Dane reaches towards the sword, and part of the sword is showing, not wrapped up, and it appears that the sword is somewhat alive, having some black stuff on it that reaches out towards Dane as he goes to touch it. Now, right before he touches it, he hears a voice from behind him that says, "Are you sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?" Now, this voice has been confirmed. Originally, I did think it was the Watcher, and a lot of people are saying it is the Watcher. However, the director came out and said that it is Blade. It is the voice of Mahershala Ali who is going to be playing Blade. So it looks like the Eternals post-credit scene just confirmed that the Black Knight and Blade will be teaming up in the MCU at some point in time. And again, this was confirmed to be Blade's voice by the director, Chloe Zhao, in an interview with Fandom. Now, what this post-credit scene is doing is setting up Dane Whitman to become the Black Knight in the MCU, and this sword that he's about to touch is the Ebony Blade. However, there's a little bit of a trick to the Ebony Blade. The blade was a magical blade forged by the wizard Merlin and Dane Whitman's ancestor, Sir Percy. It was formed from the Starstone meteorite. The blade is enchanted to cut through any object, it can prevent death of its wielder, and it can deflect any type of magic. However, it was also revealed to be cursed. Null, the symbiote god, revealed the true nature of the Ebony Blade. The curse was that it would slowly corrupt any user and cause a lust for violence, bloodshed, and death. According to Null, it can only be wielded by the impure of heart, drawing out their negative emotions until they become bloodthirsty berserkers. So yes, it's enchanted and can cut through anything and deflect magic, but it comes at a pretty high cost. Now, Dane most likely knows something about this, which is why he's so nervous to even open the chest. But this also means that he probably knows that once he grabs it, he will become the Black Knight. But like I mentioned, there is a pretty big curse that comes with it, which is why Blade shows up and says, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And those are the two Eternals post-credit scene. If you enjoyed the Eternals and want more breakdowns on what happened in the movie and the post-credit scenes, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Be sure to let me know what you thought about the Eternals in the comments down below, and for live updates you can always follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.